Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Security Squawk Podcast, the show where we take the latest in cybersecurity chaos and try to make sense of it for business owners, IT pros, and the MSP world, holding the world together with duct tape and coffee. That's my line for today, Randy.
All right. Yeah, that's a good one.
So I'm Bryan Hornung, if you don't know, with Exact IT, and with me, as always, is my partner in crime, Randy Bryan from Tech Rescue. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. And just to add a little bit to that line, I think that we got worried there. They were going to take away the duct tape and the coffee money there for months, but looks like they're still keeping at least that money in place to help keep businesses cyber secure. Maybe. Got a great show today. I'm looking forward to it.
See what happens tomorrow. But big day in the economy. So, and we'll see.
What happens tomorrow?
Federal Reserve decides what they're going to do with rates.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we pretty much know that they're going to at least drop it a quarter of a point, which should loosen things up a little bit. But, you know, the bigger picture or the longer term picture is what's at stake here. And if that doesn't, sound pretty to, people, then we might not see the end of the year be as strong as we are hoping. So this week, going back to cybersecurity, this week we've got two heavy hitters. First up, this AI, Randy, you won't believe this one, isn't just writing bad poems and fake Drake songs anymore. Experts are now warning that artificial intelligence is growing to supercharge ransomware and malware, and it's not just in the future. It's happening right now. So I'm going to dive into a story where a security team found malware, endpoint detection evasive malware that uses AI to build its code. I'm going to get into that. We'll talk about it. And Randy, you're going to bring us a story out of Vietnam where ShinyHunters, those guys again, just dropped a massive data leak from the country's credit bureau. And if you think Equifax was bad, wait until you hear this one. So let's dive in. Let's talk about it. Let's get into this AI-powered ransomware discussion that I'm bringing to the table. Let me figure out how to share my screen. First day I'm using a computer.
Yeah, I saw a statistic when I was preparing for my segment, saw a statistic on what you're about to talk about. So it should be pretty interesting.
So let's get into it. Story up on the screen comes from Mashable, but as Randy said, we've seen this talked about in various pockets of the tech world as cyber defenders and tech enthusiasts learn about the latest and greatest from our friends on the dark side, the cyber criminals. So here's the deal. Cybersecurity researchers, I believe over at ESET, are sounding the alarm that AI is going to make ransomware attacks cheaper, faster, a lot more personalized, and easier to evade your tools or your detection. Up until now, a lot of ransomware groups had to put real effort into things like writing malware, building phishing emails, figuring out how to move laterally in a network without getting caught. That took time and skill. And as you can see, like Randy, you think about it, right? All the things that we're using AI for today in our own businesses are to save us time, right? So if you understand the functions of a cyber criminal, right? And the painstaking amount of time and discipline that they have to figure out how to move laterally in a network. Like, I know we come on this show and we talk about that all the time. We say like, oh, they move laterally in a network. Well, it kind of sounds like almost like anybody can get into a network and move laterally. No, sorry, that's not easy to do. It's a skill that takes time to learn, but not only learn the tactics of how to do it, but then once you get into an environment, knowing exactly what to look for, right? So I liken it to, like, I know guys out there, Randy, that work on cars and like literally can like look at a car, hear a car run, see it driving down the road and know exactly what's wrong with it, right? And this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? These guys get in a network, right? If you're a neophyte, if you don't have experience, it's going to take you more time, right? You don't have the skills to, or the experience to know, like, hey, when I broke in before, I did this and that and this and that, right? And that experience helps you in the next breach, next attack. And that's what AI is aiding these cyber criminals in understanding. It's like they don't have to have that experience if they can ask or nudge or lean on AI to help them find the most likely vulnerabilities in that environment, right? To cut down on the time. So the barrier to entry is dropping, and some rookie hacker can now spin up convincing phishing emails in perfect English and then tailor attacks to a specific business and automate parts of the ransomware process. And the scary part is researchers are already seeing AI written malware showing up in the wild. It's not a someday thing. It's not an in the future thing. It's not maybe eventually. It's here. It's now. And we're dealing with it. And quite frankly, the defenses that we have in place, Randy, we have to admit, right? The defenses we have in place and a lot of with our endpoint tools and things like that, right? That's just one layer. That's why you got to have multiple layers, because when one layer becomes ineffective, overnight like this, you're in a lot of trouble. So companies should stop thinking that AI is some far off threat and start preparing today. That means doubling down on your layers, your employee training, making sure you're patching your systems, and maybe, just maybe, not ignoring that security budget request from your IT director or your CISO or whoever you have running your cybersecurity program at your company. Because here's the truth, hackers are using AI as a force multiplier. Businesses don't start countering with their own AI-driven defenses, it's going to feel like showing up to a gunfight with a butter knife. And that's my opinion on what's going on here with this AI stuff. But at the end of the day, Randy, what they're concerned about and what's going on right now, and this is just one example. So I'm almost like, I almost don't want to give this example because it's like then everybody kind of thinks like, oh, we just have to do that. Well, no, this is going to manifest itself in so many different ways. Like, it's not even funny, but what they're doing right now, or what we're seeing it being exploited in the wild, is simply guys just putting things out. And it's like saying like, hey, we're not going to put the code that the antivirus software is looking for in our malware, right? Because that's what it does. It literally looks for code, a certain string of text and characters put together, and if it gets a hit on that, it's going to flag it. Well, if you can get that software, right? Because that's what malware is. Malware is just software, but it does something malicious. So if you can get that on the computer and it doesn't have any of that malicious code that your tools are looking for when it goes onto the system, but eventually it can tell AI like, hey, I need you to write this code for me. And by the way, oh yeah, obfuscate it that way. So when I actually put it on this system, it doesn't fire off any alerts or triggers, right? And it can do that. It can literally obfuscate known bad code that antivirus and these tools are looking for. It can obfuscate it so it can't detect it, and then it can run it just like it was the normal code because it understands the cryptography it created to evade those defenses. So that's it in a nutshell. I tried not to get too technical there, Randy, but that's it. And at the end of the day, they're just making their own code on the fly and pulling it down from the internet.
Yeah. So the statistic that I read in passing earlier this morning was they're thinking close to 80% of what's out there now is already using AI. And some of the things I read about, Bryan, things like it gets on the machine and it phones home for live scripts on what it needs to do in that particular situation. So the home-based brain, if you will, basically talking to the malware once it gets on the machine. And my thought when I was reading all that was, yeah, probably the days, you just kind of mentioned this a second ago, but kind of the days of looking for specific code in software. Okay, I guess we'll probably always have that. But what we really need to be watching for are, what is it doing? Okay. Is it phoning home to somewhere? Is it, downloading extra parts to its code? The scary thing though, Bryan, as I was also thinking through this, they could put it on a machine. That was misspoke, not a Freudian spoke.
Not a Freudian slip. You swear.
But they could put it on a machine and it could gather what it needed slowly over the course of a year and probably not make any kind of EDR or MDR or whatever kind of blow a gasket, because it'd be like one little tiny thing here, one little tiny thing here. How long is your where your stuff's being ingested, where they're looking at all the data? Is that just 30 days? Is it 7 days? Is it a year? Is it forever? Is all that getting brought together? So you're right. It is a little bit of a scary time right now because of this. You would definitely want to have something in place that's going to limit where software can call to, because that's what we're seeing that it's doing, phoning home to get updates and downloads and stuff like that, but also where you're watching where everything on your machine is looking, and obviously analyzing all of that with AI. On a side note, I saw today that they found a cache, if you will, of about 10,000 URLs, and I think it was 100,000 IP addresses that the bad guys have been using that we didn't know about until just a couple of days ago. So, that'll help a tiny little bit. But anyway, yeah, this is pretty disturbing stuff.
That's crazy. I mean, it's, I don't know, man. How I've always kind of railed on businesses that they're not doing enough. And I read things like this, and I know what's going on out there. Like, the reality of it is, folks, is like every business. I mean, I got to say every business, Randy, because I have yet to meet a business that's doing this stuff because it's the right thing to do, and they know they need to do it, right? They're either forced to do it because of regulation, so they're doing it at a high level because of that. And even the ones that are regulated, there's people that are in those companies that are telling them, like, just do the bare minimum so we can get that certification or we can get that pass, and they're not really doing this for the right reasons, and that usually plays out poorly in the long run. But at the end of the day, that's what we're seeing out there. Like, we're seeing businesses just trying to skirt this every way that they can, and not invest what they need to invest to protect your data. So yes, your data is going to end up all over the place. It's going to get stolen. You're going to have to deal with identity theft, identity fraud. And I know it's increasing on everybody because it's increasing on me. It's happening to me. My phone's blowing up all the time anymore. And it's in the last 6 months. It wasn't like this 6 months ago. So it only tells me that these guys' operations is only increasing. Right? Like, what you have to understand is there's no market for scammers and these people to operate if there's no data on the dark web. Now we have just massive amounts of data. So we're literally creating an industry for cyber criminals to operate under by all this information being out there, it's just a matter of time before these low-level scammers go through all this information. And, that's what they work at. It's like, they show up every day. They might not scam somebody today, but when they do scam one or two people, it's payday, right?
Yep.
And they know how to get paid when that happens. So,
well,
good.
Well, and we've also been saying for probably 2 years on our show, ever since LLMs, large language models, that's the current main iteration of AI, and I use that in quotes, but we've been saying that the bad guys could just take all this information off of the dark web that's being leaked and then use the AI to write the most astounding phishing emails ever. So we're seeing some of that, but now going to the next level using AI to write the actual software. I did have one little thing I want to say before I move on to the next one, Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you. I would assume, and this is for the CISOs out there, and people in charge of cybersecurity, maybe that don't have a title at their business. But I always see when I evaluate security software, there's always a little vulnerability in there somewhere. I'm just saying, we could sit offline and talk. Anything that I've evaluated, there's always some little something. But now with AI is going to be able to find those little things, and it's going to make it pretty scary, if you ask me. I don't know if scary is the right word, but it's going to get very interesting because AI is going to be able to find those little things that we see, you and I, and I'm sure other security people see it when they're working with software, evaluating software. There's nothing out there's perfect. And that's why you said there's got to be multiple layers and stuff. Man, AI is going to be able to come in and probably take advantage of a lot of those little vulnerabilities, that we have as humans have seen, because nothing out there is perfect. Anyway, that was just a little thought I had.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example of what you're talking about. And what I talked about is, we have a customer who has a need to have a SOC in place. The way that I would say that they're being requested to have these things in place is written very ambiguously, and there's a lot of room for interpretation. So rather than do what we would recommend, which is we get a SOC in place that's managing all the devices, they've decided that it's a better idea to just have us monitor the network devices and not have a SOC team responding to the computers, right? So now we're being hamstrung in what we know we can do for that customer. And we're relying on endpoint protection to be our sole. And we know in this environment that with these kind of threats, we're not going to be able to stop it with endpoint protection. But if we had our SOC team in there, right. So what happens is they get around the endpoint protection, and now they're starting to do hacking activities, and a SOC team would pick up on that, right? So the SOC team is the next layer when the EDR and the antivirus fail, right? That's what we're talking about with layers of protection, right? So when we see what's called indicators of compromise immediately flag up on a system, we can then take action and make sure that that person or that adversary cannot move any further than where they're at and not do more damage very quickly, right? So on the flip side of that, and this is, you either have this or you don't. It's pretty simple, right? It's not an in-between. You either have it or you don't. And if you have it, you can stop them and minimize the blast radius. If you don't, your blast radius is going to be pretty damn big. Because you don't have any idea that these guys are moving throughout your network, and they're probably embedding themselves in every device at that point. Where if you have a SOC and a threat hunting team and a response team, these things don't play out. So Randy, speaking of feeling outgunned, you've got a story about a nation's entire financial system getting punched in the face by hackers. Let us know what happened in Vietnam and Can this happen in the U.S.? That's my big question.
Right. Well, okay. So hackers, this actually was ShinyHunters. So ShinyHunters has been around, I mean, at least for 5 years. We know of reports of them going back to 2020. They're the ones who've been behind the Salesforce attacks. So they're the ones that have excellent English speakers that can be deployed. And in this particular case, they were able to get into the Credit Institute of Vietnam, which is basically like, our TransUnion or Equifax or something like that. One of those services that has everybody's data in it that, banks and other institutions need to give you loans and things like that. It does appear that it was a little more than just, they were able to get some passwords and get in. We don't know exactly how they got in, but they have been posting screenshots of SQL, which is a SQL, which is like database in the back end. They've been posting screenshots of what they're doing. So it appears that they really got in and they really had control of stuff. They were able to pull 160 million records. Now, remember, Vietnam as a whole has, I think, around 100 million people. Okay. So you probably have records of some people that have passed away. There's probably multiple records on, the same people, but it really does look like anybody who's ever done anything financially that had to get a credit report or something like that, which is most of the country, it looks like the entire thing has been leaked. And we're talking information like their identification numbers, credit payment histories, risk analysis, credit card data, military, government ID numbers, tax identification records, income statements, debt owed. Like, we're talking a ton of stuff. A couple more crazy things. They're offering this for sale for $175,000, which is nothing.
Right.
Basically, I mean, I know it's a lot of money to us average blokes, but I'm just talking about, like, as far as a criminal organization goes that's looking to make money, that wants to make an investment. What a steal that they're offering that for. And then a couple of things. We don't know exactly how they got in, but we do know that one database, it appears, held all the crown jewels, if you will. And we are not seeing evidence of things like segmentation, different layers of access, and maybe some of that will come out. But it looks like it was just all in one big place. And they were able just to get in there and pull it out. So, we don't talk a lot about breaches in other countries, the US, and I know occasionally, we pick up some around the world, but I thought this one would be important to talk about because we have credit reporting agencies in the US that have all of your data. If you ever apply for a loan and they ask you, where did you live, when you were 12 years old, you got to put that on there, right? They know all kinds of stuff about us. So single point of potential failure. I felt like this was very relevant to even to us in the USA because these nationwide things can get hacked. We've seen things happen like entire states get hacked now. We talked about Nevada a couple weeks ago, I think. But this is a very real concern and possibility for something like this to happen over here stateside.
Yeah. I mean, Equifax had a problem before, right? But if you understand that breach and what's happening here, that makes Equifax look like a minor inconvenience, in my opinion, in terms of the scale. But something like that could happen. I remember Andre would always bring up that company down in Florida that had all the Social Security numbers,
right?
And everything, right? And so, like, there's been pockets of this in our country where large companies that are like, the back end, right, of the financial system. There's companies that service the underbelly of the financial system, so to speak, right? And if one of those gets hacked, it's like you don't even realize they process or have your data a lot of times, right? Because you deal with the mortgage company or you deal with, Equifax, but there's companies that make that stuff move, and and that's how it all works. So you got to understand that. And these companies have had a problem here in the U.S. Not to this extent, but I could see it playing out where one of these companies that nobody's ever heard of gets hacked, and it's like, oh, Equifax used them, and basically that's all of Equifax's data, or TransUnion, or Experian, anyone, right? So the crazy part is, it's not just about Vietnam. That data, as we mentioned, will end up fueling fraud and identity theft all over the world. And if businesses aren't paying attention, they're basically letting ShinyHunters and everyone else like them and all their buddies run the global black market for personal gain. And that's what these companies are allowing to happen. That's why when I said earlier that we are creating a black market by just being lazy about cybersecurity, that's what we're doing. Like, this shit wouldn't even exist if companies just did the right thing. Like, it wouldn't even be a thing that we'd have to worry about. But we want to play a game of chicken. We want to believe that there aren't more people choosing to go to the dark side of cybersecurity because it's more lucrative than to play on this side of it. But that's the reality, at least in other parts of the world. Maybe not in the U.S. But we have to be mindful of this stuff. Like, there are generations of kids being born every year that are going to wake up, see technology, and decide, well, they don't make any money doing it that way, so I'm going to go over here and do it this way. It's more lucrative. And it's just crazy that we keep playing this game, right? That the nerds will win at the end of the day. Let's just hope they're the good guys and not the bad guys.
Yeah. And another disturbing thing about this, Bryan, is ShinyHunters has been behind, I believe, most of these Salesforce attacks that we've seen. We had Salesforce affecting Google.
Well, Lapsus and ShinyHunters, to me, seem to be the same people.
Right. And some big brand names I saw over the last few days had another Salesforce attack that was ShinyHunters. I didn't talk about that today because we've talked so much over the past 2-3 months about this Salesforce thing. But the scary thing is here, these guys are scaling. I mean, they've figured out how to go just above a couple of little attacks. I mean, they're dealing with major worldwide companies, now dealing with entire nations, and they're just scaling to do it.
It's like businesses are the satellites, and the hackers are 3i Atlas. Like, they're just barreling towards you, and you don't even see it coming.
That's that giant comet that's headed our way,
whatever it is. Comet, 7-mile long comet. Okay. It's a comet, Randy.
That's right.
It's playing before we take it somewhere else. It doesn't need to go.
That's
so,
right.
Big takeaways today. AI isn't just hype anymore. It's already making ransomware nastier, faster, more dangerous. So if you're running a business, don't wait until the ransom note pops up on your screen to figure out a plan. Get these layers in place. If you don't know what we're talking about, reach out to experts that can start helping you get these things in place and help. Look, we work in this business. We've worked it in a long time. We've seen lots of companies that have really good-hearted people working at their companies that just don't really understand everything. And you have to be mindful and aware of that they might lack some understanding, some knowledge, that they're not bringing to the table for your company. That's critically important, like this, what we cover on the show, right? So bring in outside experts that can help your team. Don't think that your team and your people are the end all be all, right? Randy's story, the ShinyHunters attack, shows how these breaches aren't just local problems. One country's credit bureau gets hit and suddenly fraud risk spikes everywhere. So train your people, patch your systems, and for the love of security, stop thinking it won't happen to me. So that's it for me on the Security Squawk podcast. Make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, share this with someone who thinks cybersecurity is just an IT problem. It helps more people than you know. And hey, if you want to support the show, you can literally buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Security Squawk. The link's at the top of the screen on the video if you're watching it. We'll put it to good use, keeping the lights on and the ransomware out. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Stay safe out there.
Bye, everybody.